So, like a week or so ago, Emily and I went to downtown Portland to get our first experience what a protest was like. And there was a lot of really good things. There was also a lot of things that I didn't quite know what to make of, and I'm definitely leaning towards I don't like it. One of the chants, it was only one. There were many good chants, but this chant in particular was ACAB. I saw a sign and I was
Very
like,
familiar.
what is ACAB? And I didn't know, so I had to Google it. Turns out it means all cops are bastards. And for me, that was really hard for me to get behind. I can understand why some people might feel that way, but I'm curious to you as a black man, how do you see law enforcement?
Well, I know a lot of cops, and I know all of them. The ones that I know, they have fathers, and so that would kind of preclude them from being bastards. So,
honestly, as you were saying, I'm like, what does he say? And then, sorry, I was a little slow. It took me a moment. Okay,
I got you.
Got
it. So, but really, Justin, again, there's nuances to this, and there's layers to it. I don't believe all cops are bastards.
Okay.
I'm not that. I don't subscribe to that notion. When you're dealing with racism, okay, racism has children. One of its children is oppression. Okay. And that oppression is often exercised in judicial systems or legislative systems.
I remember watching through 13th, and it was telling the story of a guy who stole like $9 worth of something, and the result was 39 years in prison, if I remember the details correctly.
Sure. Yeah.
Like mind-blowing.
That's a true. I'm familiar.
That's a true story.
Absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely. Yeah. I went to stand in court with a African American male. He shoplifted. He stole something. It was his very first time. He got 11 years in prison.
Whoa.
Thankfully, he appealed and it was thrown out. But it is a truth that convictions, and we're not talking about the judicial system right now. We're talking about cops. But just a point, there's some disproportionate realities that adversely affect African Americans. We go to jail longer. We get harsher sentences. We get arrested more. And somebody says, well, that's because you're criminals and you're thugs and this is your fault. Well, I assure you, there's no social scientist in the world that would agree that 13% of a population are the problem. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. But with that being said, I want to just get back to this, how I see cops. Okay. These are real people. They have.
You actually used to work with cops, right?
I did. I was a chaplain for a police department, and I have a heart for them. They're putting their lives on the line. I am not completely satisfied with anyone that says all cops are good and they're just doing their job. That's not true. It can't be true. They're going to be bad apples in every group, but the problem with policing is that that's just not the kind of profession you can afford to have a bad apple in.
Right.
It's like pilots. You can't say, oh, we just got a few pilots that crash, but we're mostly good.
Right. It reminds me of the little joke, like if at first you don't succeed, skydiving's not for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's not a mistake you want to make.
No.
And so what has happened there's so many layers. Okay. Like the 13th Amendment, if you've never heard of this, is that we're going to outlaw slavery. We're going to ban slavery in America or slave ownership unless you commit a crime. And somehow, some way, that has, again, like many things in our history, have an adverse effect on the African American community because we represent such a large part of the prison population. And some people say, well, they deserve to be there. Well, I disagree. I don't think that's the case. They don't all deserve to be there, and at least not that long or in the way they got there. So on policing, is it a problem that racism exists? Yes. And should people who wear uniform be screened or held accountable for their racist acts or conversations? Absolutely. What happens then is it begs another question. Well, I don't believe all cops are racist, but why aren't the ones that aren't holding those accountable that are? And that's a difficult thing. And there's this kind of blue wall, like this iron wall that they all stand behind. And I understand it a little bit differently.
Yeah, you have a lot of these friends in the police department. Why is there this sense of we protect our own even when you do something wrong?
I think because they all have a single thing in common. I talked earlier in one of our conversations that you can be in a faith community, but still have a different cultural experience. You can be an alum of a particular school and even though you were educated in the same place and your worldview may be framed similarly, you have a different cultural experience. And that's true for police officers. It is a fraternal order. It's a brotherhood and a sisterhood. But I know a lot of black cops that would rather die than endorse racism. They hold things account, but there's some challenges that exist. First of all, the police departments around the United States, they are risking their lives. They don't know what's going to happen at a traffic stop. They don't know what's going to happen in a home. And I think they do a lot better if they just start admitting we've got some issues of racism and we need help navigating this. And I think that kind of vulnerability, it wouldn't make them weaker. It'd make them stronger.
One of the other things I saw in the protest as it pertained to cops was this idea of defunding police. Which at first here, I was like, whoa, that sounds like a terrible idea. We do not want police to have no resources or there to not be police at all. Like I think on average, having cops is a good thing.
Yeah.
Help me understand what exactly is being meant when it comes to defunding police, and what do you think about this?
Well, again, Justin, it can mean a lot of things. People hurt differently, so it can mean a lot of things. What it means in terms of a legal sense, it means we want to strip away the funding for a local police department and refund it with a different structure and different employees. Okay, companies do it all the time, but that's a civic term that refers to that process.
So defunding is an actual like procedural.
Absolutely, it is a process. In Camden, New Jersey, they decided not too many years ago to defund their police department. And what that simply meant, they laid everyone off. Everyone was fired, terminated, released from their responsibilities. It didn't happen just one night. We have no police for the next few weeks until we figure this out.
Right.
It was a process. And then they created new screening processes, new training protocols. And in doing that, they've created a really appreciated community-based policing environment. And they're doing a lot better in that city. So it is a process that can work. It's just that there are ideas associated with this defund police that are grouped in with all police, all cops are bastards, and that idea is that let's get rid of the police. Some people do think that. Some people want that.
Really?
But that is, absolutely. And we have to acknowledge these truths. But that's not where the win is going to be. I think with policing, because these are people that are part of our communities, and they should be. One of the downfalls of policing is when you have officers that are patrolling large territories and they don't live in those territories. That's not their home. And that can be very dangerous because then this is us against them.
Yeah.
But when you have a different approach where they're representing the community they're part of, you got to remember, these people got to kiss their kids. Okay? They're not white in that uniform or black in that uniform. They're police, and they're all grouped in together. Nobody says only white cops are bastards. Nobody does that.
Sure.
Okay? That's a real reality for them, and I think it's unfair for us to make them the enemy. Racism is the enemy, and we've got to deal with that. And the officers and the police departments and administrators of these cities are going to have to do a lot better, a hell of a lot better at making sure they hold that accountable and root that out. If you've got an officer that got multiple complaints, you can't keep putting them out dealing with people. That's just a recipe for disaster. And I think let's throw that out, but let's figure out how to make policing work. And I think that those are the layers you got to unpack.
So if, let's say, in the next couple of weeks or months, you find yourself in a protest and the chant is all cops are bastards or defund the police, what are you doing?
Well, I'm going to probably be saying something else. And the challenge with protesting, it hurts the protest because there's so many messages.
Yeah. And
so you have to look at the theme. The theme is we want to end oppression. We want to end systemic racism. Some people think systemic racism is a myth. It's not true. And I assure you, those are people who don't live it. I share my experience with people. They're like, that's not true. It can't be possible. I remember sharing with someone that I was arrested 3 times. And they said, man, I went and looked that up. I don't see the police records. They were trying to verify
They just thought you were lying.
They're like, there's no way. It's not possible. You couldn't have been. I mean, the records are there. I wasn't convicted of a crime. That's the issue. But the point that I'm making with that is that it's just such an unbelievable reality. It's really easier emotionally, mentally, to just not acknowledge it. And so for me in that protest, that's not my message. My message is not that all cops are bastards. My message is that we need to end the issues and the offspring, the ugly, atrocious offspring of racism wherever it exists. And if it's adversely affecting a people group like African Americans, we need to put an end to it. And the only way to do it, Justin, is together.
Next time on I'm Listening. So at the risk of being that ignorant idiot, I have a question for you. And I'm sorry if this is offensive. I know you love. I know that you know that I love you, and so I mean this with all like. Good
you hear my offensive stuff, so I'm gonna hear your.
Okay, good. Why are black people so angry?
Well, black people aren't angry, Justin. They're pissed off. Okay? Not angry. They're pissed off. It's way past angry.